Have you ever been treated poorly by someone who didn't know who you were? What if that person was a flight attendant and you were the owner of the airline? Sounds intriguing, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to Mark Dalton, the owner of Dalton Airlines, during a routine flight. Mark, a successful man in his 40s, prefers to stay under the radar, blending in as just another passenger. But on this flight, as he settled into his first-class seat, he encountered Cindy, a flight attendant with a less than friendly attitude. From the moment she served him, her behavior was dismissive, even rude, until she accidentally spilled hot coffee on him. Mark, though in pain, remained calm. But what Cindy didn't know was that this encounter would lead to more than just an apology. Today we'll dive into a surprising story about respect, consequences, and the lessons we can learn from one man's decision. Mark Dalton is a man in his 40s who has achieved significant success. As the owner of Dalton Airlines, he's built an empire, but you'd never know it by looking at him. Mark isn't the type of person who seeks the spotlight. In fact, he prefers to stay out of it, blending in with the crowd. He believes in the power of observation, and that's why he loves traveling anonymously. When he flies, he doesn't want anyone to know who he is. Instead, he wants to experience the airline from the same perspective as any other passenger, without any special treatment or expectations. This desire to stay low-key isn't just about humility. It's Mark's way of ensuring that he truly understands the customer experience. By sitting in the seats, walking through the terminals, and interacting with staff just like everyone else, he can see exactly how his airline is performing. It's all about getting a first-hand look at how things operate when no one knows who he is. Mark believes that to lead effectively, you need to observe from a place of humility. It's not about drawing attention to yourself. It's about making sure your business is running smoothly and upholding the standards you've worked so hard to create. This philosophy sets the stage for the story we're about to dive into, where Mark's ability to observe, rather than demand attention, will prove to be a key part of an unexpected turn of events. As Mark settled into his first-class seat, the atmosphere seemed peaceful. But little did he know, one flight attendant's attitude would soon make things uncomfortable. Cindy Cameron, a flight attendant with a clear air of superiority, was making her way down the aisle. She had been with Dalton Airlines for several years, but her service left much to be desired. Cindy had a judgmental streak. She tended to view certain passengers as out of place in first class. If they didn't carry designer bags or wear high-end clothing, she would often give them a cold, dismissive glance. Mark noticed her behavior from the moment she entered the cabin, casting an annoyed look at some of the less polished passengers as she handed out menus. When Cindy reached Mark's row, her treatment of him was immediate and apparent. She handed him a menu without a word of greeting or even a glance in his direction. Her expression was blank, and there was no attempt to make him feel welcome. As she moved swiftly to the next passenger, offering them a warm smile and a friendly greeting, Mark felt the difference. She wasn't just indifferent to him. She seemed to view him as insignificant, just another ordinary man with no place in first class. Then came the coffee spill. A few minutes later, Cindy returned to serve drinks. She held the tray with coffee and refreshments, her gaze barely lifting to meet Mark's. "What would you like?" she asked curtly, barely looking at him. Mark requested just a cup of coffee. As she poured it, there was a moment of tension. Mark could feel the impatience in her movements. Without warning, Cindy tilted the cup too far, spilling the hot coffee directly onto Mark's face. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, but there was no sincerity in her voice. Her words were mechanical, almost as if the apology was an afterthought. She didn't offer him any help or attempt to clean him up. She simply moved on, leaving Mark with the sting of the coffee burn and the growing realization that Cindy wasn't just careless. She was showing an utter lack of professionalism. Despite the pain, Mark remained calm, wiping the coffee off his face with a napkin. The tension was palpable, but he chose not to react. He stayed silent, watching Cindy move on, leaving him with a lingering sense of disappointment in the way he had been treated. Mark chose to remain quiet, carefully observing Cindy's behavior as the flight continued. He noticed that she wasn't just dismissive towards him. She treated other passengers with similar indifference, especially those who didn't fit the typical first-class image. Some passengers exchanged uncomfortable glances, whispering among themselves about Cindy's lack of professionalism. Mark could feel the growing discomfort around him, but he resisted the urge to make a scene. As someone who had once been nervous about flying, he understood how unsettling it could be to feel out of place. He didn't want to add to anyone's stress, especially not the young lady a few rows in front of him who was already showing signs of anxiety. Despite the burn from the coffee and his disappointment in Cindy's behavior, Mark chose to stay calm, knowing that addressing it in the moment wouldn't be productive. He'd seen enough, and now he needed to decide what to do next. After the flight, Mark made a decision. He wasn't going to let Cindy's behavior slide. He called his trusted assistant, Rachel, and calmly asked her to arrange a meeting with the head of human resources and the flight supervisor. Mark wanted to address the issue directly, ensuring that it was handled professionally. He made it clear that this wasn't just about a single incident. It was about maintaining the values of Dalton Airlines. Mark's airline was built on a foundation of respect, professionalism, and exceptional customer service, no matter the passenger's appearance or status. He knew that as the owner, it was his responsibility to uphold those standards and make sure every passenger, regardless of who they were, received the treatment they deserved. The meeting was set, and Mark was determined to take action, quietly but firmly. When Cindy walked into the HR meeting, she had no idea who she was about to face. As she entered the room, she glanced around nervously, and then her eyes fell on Mark, sitting calmly at the table. The realization hit her like a wave. He was the ordinary man she had mistreated during the flight. Her face went pale as she understood the gravity of the situation. Mark, however, remained composed. He addressed her with the respect she failed to show, his tone firm but calm. "Cindy, this isn't about titles or who I am," he said. "It's about treating all passengers with dignity and respect. Everyone, regardless of their appearance, deserves to be treated with courtesy." Despite her apology, Mark knew what had to be done. "Respect is non-negotiable," he said, making it clear that her behavior had violated the very principles Dalton Airlines was built on. After careful consideration, Mark decided to terminate her employment. He couldn't allow a single employee to tarnish the airline's reputation and values, no matter the circumstances. Mark's final words to Cindy were calm yet resolute. He told her that she had been given several chances to change, but now it was time for consequences. "Respect and kindness cost nothing," he said, offering one last piece of advice. His message was clear. Her actions weren't just a mistake, but a reflection of a deeper disregard for the values that Dalton Airlines stood for. Mark's decision wasn't just about one incident. It was about reinforcing the airline's core principles. By holding Cindy accountable, Mark exemplified true leadership, one that doesn't tolerate poor behavior, no matter who the person is or what position they hold. He understood the impact of leading by example and the importance of maintaining high standards, especially when others might not even realize how their actions affect those around them. It was a firm, fair decision that showed Mark's commitment to upholding the integrity and reputation of Dalton Airlines, no matter the cost. The key lesson here is simple. It's not about who you are. It's about how you treat others, regardless of their appearance or status. Mark's story shows us that true professionalism and respect are non-negotiable, and every person deserves to be treated with kindness and dignity. Now, I want to hear from you. Think about your own experiences with customer service or times when you've witnessed unfair treatment. How did it make you feel? How did you respond? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. And feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever been treated unfairly by a customer service professional? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your thoughts.